This week on The Experiment, James Solzer has always been obsessed with making things. Now he was positioned to help his daughter regain brain function.
It's really easy as a scientist to be skeptical, but as a parent, you need to have leaps of faith.
Listen wherever you get podcasts.
It's The Takeaway. I'm Melissa Harris Perry.
For too long, our government, our courts, haven't looked like America. And I believe it's time that we have a court that reflects the full talents and greatness of our nation, with a nominee of extraordinary qualifications. And that we inspire all young people to believe that they can one day serve their country at the highest level.
On Friday, President Biden nominated Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson to the Supreme Court. Judge Jackson formerly clerked for retiring Justice Stephen Breyer and currently serves on the U.S. Court of Appeals for the District of Columbia Circuit. Speaking at the White House on Friday, Judge Jackson marked her own historic nomination by paying homage to another judicial trailblazer.
As it happens, I share a birthday with the first Black woman ever to be appointed as a federal judge, the Honorable Constance Baker Motley. We were born exactly 49 years to the day apart. Today, I proudly stand on Judge Motley's shoulders, sharing not only her birthday, but also her steadfast and courageous commitment to equal justice under law.
We asked for your reactions to Judge Jackson's nomination.
Hi, this is Susan from Minneapolis, and I have read some background on Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson, and she looks really qualified. And if Mitch McConnell thinks he's going to stop this, he doesn't know what's coming.
My name is Joe Wolfenden. I'm calling from Sacramento, California. I'm really glad that they're recommending Judge Brown Jackson to be nominated for the Supreme Court. I like the fact that her background also includes her having been a public defender at one time. I think we need more balance on the court, and this helps in multiple ways.
I'm Tim from Pampa, Texas. Who cares what her skin color is? I want to know her judicial philosophy. Is she dedicated to following the Constitution, or is she determined to rewrite the Constitution to fit an agenda?
Hi, this is Cheryl from Arlington, Texas. It's unfortunate that Ms. Jackson's qualifications will not be remembered and valued as much as the other things that the media is talking about. I'm sure she's going to do a great job. I'm very pleased for her, and I know that she is proud of what she has accomplished. I just hope that we all recognize her for what she accomplishes and her qualifications, and not her ethnicity and gender.
Hi, my name is Yvonne, and I'm calling from Liverpool, New York. I'm happy about it. At the same time, I'm unhappy that we're still in a place in these United States where we have to look solely to a person because of the color of her skin, to balance the fact that in the 233 years of SCOTUS, we've only had 2 Black people, Thurgood and Thomas, out of the 113 justices in total. So probably not in our lifetime, but I do hope that this won't be necessary in our nature's future. I applaud President Biden for making this awesome nomination.
My name is Lynette. I'm calling from Midlothian, Virginia. I am elated. I'm so excited that we will have a womanist perspective. And when I use that, it is a Black woman, when I use the word womanist perspective, who has an array of experiences. Congratulations, Judge Jackson. Thank you, Mr. President, for nominating her. Now, let's move it forward.
For more on Judge Jackson, I'm joined now by Melissa Murray, law professor at NYU, faculty director of the Birnbaum Women's Leadership Network, and co-host of the legal podcast, Strict Scrutiny. Good to have you again, Professor Murray.
Thank you for having me, Melissa.
All right, so remind us a bit of Judge Jackson's path to this moment.
Well, it's actually quite interesting. It's a sort of circuitous path, not necessarily one that we've seen from other high court nominees. So she has all of the standard credentials, Ivy League education, standout in high school, clerked at all three levels of the federal judiciary. That will be a first for the Supreme Court to have someone who has done that. She's been a clerk for the justice that she will likely replace, Stephen G. Breyer. But from there, she acknowledges that her family circumstances often dictated her work life. So she was first in big law at major law firms, but because of the demands of that schedule and the crush of having small children, she decided to leave to find work that was more compatible with her family responsibilities. So she first went to the Sentencing Commission to work there as a lawyer. She later came back to the Sentencing Commission as the vice chair later, but she also served as a public defender. And that is actually quite consequential for the court because we have not had, since Thurgood Marshall left the court in 1991, a justice who has been involved in criminal defense, and we have never actually had a public defender. So again, a really rich and varied experience in the legal profession, and sterling credentials all add up to an A-plus nominee.
And of course, as part of that that rich and varied background, it means that she has professional colleagues across a wide variety of areas of the law. I'm wondering how consequential that may be as she comes forward into this nomination process.
Well, I think we know that the work that justices have done in the past often informs what they will do on the court. So Judge Robert Jackson, the last Justice Jackson, was famously a lawyer in the executive branch, serving as both Solicitor General and as Attorney General in the FDR and Truman administrations. And he really thought about that experience when he thought about questions of presidential power. He wrote a very consequential opinion in one case, Youngstown Sheet and Tube, which is about presidential power. So again, that kind of rich professional background very much comes to play when these individuals take the bench. And I imagine that this wide and diverse range of experiences will also inform this new Justice Jackson when she takes the bench.
Now, we heard from a caller, Tim from Texas, who asked, who cares what the color of her skin is? Which I think if I'm thinking about Justice Clarence Thomas, I get that as a point. So let me ask, who cares?
Well, I think Tim has really lost the thread here. It does matter. It matters as a question of representation. Black women have been a part of this country for as long as this country has been in existence, and yet we have never been reflected in the upper echelons of leadership until Vice President Kamala Harris and now Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson. So they've both shattered durable glass ceilings. But I don't think that's it. The High Court will take up a very consequential challenge to affirmative action next year, and I think that President Biden's effort to be clear that he was placing a Black woman on the court has broader meanings beyond representation. My co-host at Strict Scrutiny said this on our podcast last week, and I think the point is apt. As the court takes up this issue, the president is also showing that he is someone who is involved in the process of constitutional meaning making. And while the court is debating whether or not the use of race is always impermissible, always tantamount to white supremacy or impermissible or invidious discrimination, I think he's showing that there are permissible uses of race to overcome past underrepresentation or past exclusion to reflect the diversity of a multiracial democracy. And so this is, I think, his own stand as precedent on what the Constitution means and should mean. And I think he's doing that purposely as the court begins to reflect on this larger question.
All right, Professor Murray, what do you make of this moment in Judge Jackson's remarks at the time of her nomination?
Well, I thought the notion that she is complex, that she has multifaceted parts of her identity was really reflected in the statement about her uncle, who has been widely reported as being involved in the criminal justice system and has been incarcerated. But she also showed that that wasn't the end of her story. Like many African Americans, we know that there can be lots of different interactions with the criminal justice system. People can be involved in it, can be caught up in it, but also require and indeed enlist the help of the criminal justice system and be part of that system as well. So she not only has an uncle who has been incarcerated, she has uncles and a brother who have been in law enforcement. So she really has seen it all. And I also think it was a little bit of a rebuke to the media, who was widely reported about her uncle who's been incarcerated, but there's been very little coverage of the fact that she also has these family members who have been involved in law enforcement as well.
Speaking of which, in a press release last week, National Fraternal Order of Police voiced their support for Judge Jackson and noted that they have not always been in total accord with her views. But why do you think they were so quick to come out in support of Judge Jackson?
Well, again, I think this is someone who, whether or not you agree with her views, I think she's very open-minded when she approaches criminal justice issues. She's very steeped in the criminal justice system. She has served as a commissioner on the U.S. Sentencing Commission, thinking about sentencing policy. When she was a young lawyer working as a counsel for the Sentencing Commission, she realized that she could not make these kinds of decisions about sentencing policy without having practical experience. So she went back and decided to become a public defender, so she could see what this looked like on the ground. So I think they are acknowledging that whether or not you ultimately agree with where she comes out, she has the chops. She's steeped in the system. She understands the implications of all facets of this system, and she's ready to do this work.
And now, in a pretty different sort of perspective, Senator Lindsey Graham responded to Judge Jackson's nomination, saying that it meant, quote, the radical left has won President Biden over yet again. He put that out in a tweet. I'm wondering what you make of this characterization of Judge Jackson as part of the radical left, and if that kind of discourse is what we can expect going forward in her nomination process.
Well, I think this comment was, frankly, just a lot of noise and frankly, quite predictable. You cannot assail this candidate as a radical. She is not a radical. She is pretty mainstream in a lot of respects. I mean, the only thing that is a departure from her experience and really sharply departs from that of other high court nominees is the fact that she's been a public defender. And even that is not outside of the mainstream. The rule of law requires that criminal defendants have counsel, and she provided that counsel to indigent defendants as part of the effort to uphold the rule of law. So this is not a radical left nominee, but I do think it is a harbinger of what we can expect from the Republicans as we go into this confirmation battle. And I think, frankly, it is a poorly calculated strategy. This is an historic nomination of an absolutely qualified nominee, highly qualified nominee. To reject this or to object in the ways that they're trying to really does make them look churlish, and really it's an unfortunate depiction.
I'll say, though, there is a certain power to it that's not necessarily about winning, but it erodes something. It's like, I'm here trying to enjoy this moment, right? I don't need your radical left discourse. I guess I've been thinking a lot about the confirmation hearings for Sonia Sotomayor. And as much as there have been some really wild confirmation hearings in my lifetime, this is one of the ones that I enjoyed the least. There was a kind of almost ickiness to it that wasn't as kind of out front as we felt in some of these other nominations and confirmations. But I guess there's a part of me not looking forward to these confirmation hearings. Can you talk me down off of that?
I'm afraid I'm not going to be able to talk you down off of that ledge, because I think your observation is exactly right. I mean, it really does seem to be a strategy to kind of steal the joy out of what is an historic nomination. And I very much recall the nomination and confirmation of Justice Sotomayor. I worked for Justice Sotomayor before she was nominated to the Supreme Court. And I just remember being appalled at the criticisms of her, which seemed really unfounded. The way that she was spoken to by some of the senators was absolutely appalling. I hope we don't see that. I hope we have a little more civility, but I have no illusions that this is going to be a highly polarized process. And I don't expect that this will be one where Judge Jackson, despite her sterling credentials, despite her varied and rich experience, is going to be able to pull off a feat of having truly bipartisan support. She may get a few votes from the other side, but I think they're pretty much entrenched and determined to sort of ruin this for a lot of people. And again, there are a lot of people who are looking on this and really taking joy from it in this moment.
I've been thinking a lot over the past few days about the late Professor Lani Guinier. Judge Jackson herself name-checked the Honorable Constance Baker Motley. There's a new book about her called The Queen of Civil Rights that people should read. But I'm wondering also about the pressure that this holds. We heard from the one caller saying, this is the one in kind of all of American history. And I'm wondering about Judge Jackson's capacity to rest on her own jurisprudence and not feel like she has to represent everyone who's gone before and who may go after.
I'm confident that she knows herself and that she's willing and ready to take on the weight of this moment. But I thought it was very telling that she recognized that this moment was not just about her and that she made room in her nomination speech to include other Black women who have been overlooked, like Constance Baker Motley. And I, too, have been thinking of Lani Guinier, and I'm really delighted that Tomiko Brown-Nagin at Harvard has written this book about Judge Motley. But yes, this is a moment that's perhaps bigger than Judge Jackson, but she's certainly made for this moment.
Melissa Murray is a professor of law at NYU. She's also faculty director of the Birnbaum Women's Leadership Network, co-host of the legal podcast called Strict Scrutiny. Thanks so much, Professor Murray.
Thank you, Melissa.
I'm David Remnick, and each week on the New Yorker Radio Hour, my colleagues and I unpack what's happening in a very complicated world. You'll hear from the New Yorker's award-winning reporters and thinkers, Jelani Cobb on race and justice, Jill Lepore on American history, Vincent Cunningham and Gia Tolentino on culture, Bill McKibben on climate change, and many more. So please, never miss an episode. Listen to the New Yorker Radio Hour wherever you get your podcasts.